So, on another point here, what happens if you hold the stock, but you already collect one dividend? And if you collect that dividend, I can't find my cursor here. Hold on. Oh, here it is. All right. So if you can't find that if you get that first dividend, then basically I have to go. I don't have to go through this because I have my dividends get reinvested, right? You have to specify how you invested any dividends you received in the interim. This is kind of what I was driving at in the class, right, to get the total return. So you would have to like say, okay, well, I spent it and got nothing on it. So this is what I do right here. Let's assume that all dividends are reinvested immediately and used to purchase additional shares of the same stock or security. And that's exactly what most people do, and I do. We just basically take the stock and we reinvest it. Let me actually I should make that red, right? I'm going to make that red and bold. And I'm going to save that. That's important, right? The question is to really calculate your total return. How do you know how much you're investing, okay? With those dividends. Okay, so here's how you compute historical returns. And you take each quarter, and if the stock is going to pay a dividend at the end of each quarter with a realized return each quarter, then your annualized realized return is computed as follows. And basically, it all depends on what the return is with each dividend, right? And how much when you get the dividend, what you do with it, right? So if you realized your return on each dividend and you basically invested that, then your annualized realized return is going to be the total, right? So you just take each one and multiply it by each quarter. And that's all you got to do to get the annual one. Okay, so let's go over this example here. And it's quite straightforward, right? So you got Microsoft stock. And what were the realized annual returns for Microsoft stock in 2004 and in 2008? Okay. So you have to get the data, and basically you can get the data from either Yahoo Finance, right, to get all this data. And you can make a table of their stock. So you just got to go online and hunt it down. And they tell you can go to a lot of different places. Yahoo Finance or My Finance Lab or BurkeDeMarzo.com for additional resources. All right, so here is the price for Microsoft stock. And I believe there is a mistake here. So I believe they should say 12. There is a mistake. Let me check what this actual date should be, okay? There's a problem here. I'm going to pause this for a minute. Okay, so everyone should realize this is, I checked your book, this is 12/31/03. Now, again, I don't know if it's going to let me change it, but let me try. I'll make a shot at it. There you go. I think I was successful there. What do you think? 12/31/03. Great. Now, let me save that. Okay. So here's the price, the different prices for each period, right? And basically, here's the dividend that was paid. Okay. So this is how the return that was calculated, okay? And you could basically use, for instance, they show you how they did one of them as an example. And there's more dates here. So we draw a line right down the middle here. We draw a line down the middle here, right? And you could clearly see. So the question is, how did they get minus 0.18%? Well, you take the 0.08, the dividend, right? And you take the final price, divide it by the beginning price, subtract 1, and you get minus 0.18%. Okay? And you could calculate the rest of returns in a similar way here, right? You can do them all, and here's how so you get each return and multiply them together, as I said, and you end up with 8.92%, right, for 2004. And for 2008, you end up at minus 43.39, right? So that's how you simply get that. So again, if you have any questions on that, please feel free to call me or email me. All right. The math it gets a little cumbersome in this chapter. All right. So here's another example for NRG stock in 2012 and in 2018. Similar example, right? And they go through that again, and you could clearly see, just take the final and beginning value and to add the dividend to it, and you'll see you'll get these returns here, okay? So if you don't get these returns, just let me know. But if I basically subtract this and then add that to it and then divide by that, I should get 5.13%, but I don't want the table to move. Just let go. Let go. All right, good. Okay, so that's that. Okay. All right, so we now compute each period's return. What happened? No. Where's my cursor? Whoop. All right. So there's another example here. My cursor's getting all messed up. And you can see they do the same thing here. And they get the 5.13%. Just like I said. Right? They show you how to actually do that here. So you then multiply them all together. And you'll get the return for the complete year. Notice it's each period. You notice it's for each period, right? So 4 periods. 1, 2, 3, 4. You multiply them together, you subtract 1, and you get the percent. Okay, I hope everyone's kind of clear on that. All right, so note that since NRG did not pay dividends, so there's no dividend, so you just do this division here, and you'll get minus 66%. You notice what they're telling you here, the stock really went down in price. Does everyone see that? This was the final value, that was the beginning value. So, kind of like what I went through the last month. Oh well. Okay, so here's a nice table here. And here is the S&P 500 and Microsoft and T-bills. So the dividends paid on the S&P 500. Here's the beginning and ending value, and here's the dividends paid, right? And here's the return on the S&P 500. Just again, you simply take the difference and add the dividends paid, and you'll get that return. Here's numbers for Microsoft. I don't know where they got this. I guess they got this data on Yahoo. Okay, so you can get all this data on Yahoo probably. And here is the realized returns for a 1-month T-bill. Notice how small the 1-month T-bill is. So you'll notice that it's not worth really over the long haul investing in T-bills. Okay. So you could clearly see Microsoft over the years how nice the returns were, right? This is why, and this was considered a really good stock, right? And the S&P had a couple good years, but nothing compared to like Microsoft, right? But Microsoft had had a rough year in 2008, but everyone did, right? That was the systemic risk of the great crash, the recession. Okay, so now what we got to do is we got to say, okay, we got the returns. Now we got to start hunting for how was the risk, how was the risk involved. And when I speak of risk, you know what's coming, a probability distribution, right? So empirically means we already had historical, we had the data already, and we're looking at that in an empirical sense, okay? So here's the graphs of things we looked at, right? Here's small stocks. And here's the S&P 500. And here is corporate bonds. And here is basically the 1 month T-bill. And you'll notice the 1 month T-bill, there's not a lot of risk. It's very tight. You notice the distribution is very tight, but you look at the return. You notice the return is very small here, right? It's very small, the return. Notice that small stocks and the S&P 500 have a larger distribution. So the larger and the more spread out the distribution, the greater the risk. Okay, so you can see how spread out and the risk is building up here. Alrighty, pick it up again.